永远的海盗女王齐娜奈特利在卸下海盗帽之后，积极想要以剧情片跳脱出商业气息，她想要证明自己的演技。而在晋升人气之后，演技果然大爆发。新片《情敌》里面，她是饰演一位美丽人妻，丈夫是一位英国陆军上校，负责重建遭到大战摧毁的德国。而当年英国人相当仇视希特勒，所以当夫妻两个人一同搬到德国汉堡所征召的一处豪宅暂时定居时，齐娜奈特利竟然发现老公做主收留了前德国屋主跟他的女儿。而原本齐娜奈特利是无法接受的，但这种紧绷与敌意渐渐被与同住屋檐下的前德国屋主，同样因为战争丧失至亲的同温以及激情所取代。而这位饰演德国屋主的男星亚历山大·史科斯加，不说观众绝对不会联想到哦，他就是3年前主演《泰山传奇》里面这位英俊挺拔的真人版泰山。他在《情敌》里面整个人消瘦一圈，演出忧郁官夫，跟之前壮硕肌肉英雄的形象差很多。齐娜奈特利更是突破从影尺度，有背部全裸跟露2点的画面，大方展现自己的骨感身材。而电影开拍前的18个月，她才刚刚生完宝宝，身材完全没走样哦，维持得相当好。这部电影的英文片名 Aftermath 到底是什么意思呢？其实 math 是数学，但是数学之后代表了什么？那就是后果了。一语道破战争所带来的后果。一段看似不伦的恋情背后却有着令人可以理解的原因，而且最终并不是令人遗憾的结局哦，而是对每个人都有圆满的收场。这部电影是改编自同名畅销小说，电影里的英国军官收留前德国屋主的善举是小说原著作者祖父的真实经历。亿万名导演雷利·史考特当时看到小说大为惊艳，因为这故事设定的那段期间，雷利·史考特曾经居住在德国的汉堡。这一部电影也完全唤起了他10岁的童年回忆。雷利·史考特的父亲就是当年征召德国房子使用的英国高官之一。当年他们也收留了前屋主，只是雷利·史考特的妈妈并没有跟德国管家发生外遇就是了。也是因为这部电影跟雷利·史考特的亲身经历很像，所以雷利·史考特亲自催生这部片，他是制片之一。来看我们的独家访问。
Rachel.
Hello, Lewis.
Oh, look at you.
A bit about Rachel. Rachel Morgan is a woman who travels over to Hamburg in the direct aftermath of the Second World War because her husband has been posted there and he is in charge of one of the precincts and rebuilding Hamburg. So she's a woman, they're a couple who have lost their child during a bombing raid in London, and she's suddenly, after the war, going to see her husband again and having to live amongst the people who she very well blames for her child's death. So it's her story, it's the story of how a couple who've been through that kind of tragedy could possibly stay together, could possibly communicate, can reconnect after something like that, and also how do you rebuild?
They're still finding bodies. There's chaos out there.
How do you rebuild a city? How do you rebuild a nation? And how, if you've been enemies and you've demonized each other and you've been killing each other for the previous 6 years, do you suddenly see each other as human beings again?
Everything changed when her son died. Why can't you admit it?
I should never have brought you here. Losing my mind. Everything can start again.
I mean, I just think it's quite interesting that there's been so many films made in this particular era, and rightly so, you know, it is fascinating. And yet, I can't think of any, and maybe there are and I just haven't seen them, that are dealing with the kind of that direct aftermath of that conflict, and that must have been post-apocalyptic, you know, and how on earth these people managed to rebuild that whole continent, you know, again. And I think, you know, and I thought, gosh, it's interesting that I've done quite a lot of reading about the Second World War. It's a period I'm super interested in, and I'd never thought about that. And I knew nothing about the English occupation of parts of Germany afterwards either. And I'd never thought about that, you know. And so yeah, I thought, gosh, it's it's fascinating when you find something in a period that has had so much written about it and so many films made about it that you can kind of go, but that's a new take on it.
What if we let them stay on?
You mean live with them? From what they've been through, they've become strangers to each other. And I think that's what was kind of interesting in playing them, so that you have this idea of this past life that they've shared, but they're fundamentally different people than the people that they were when they were together before the war, you know, and how as a couple who are still married, you suddenly see each other as complete strangers, and you're in this strange country surrounded by people who have been your enemies in this strange house. Everything is unknown, you know, and that must be the most lonely in a way, because of course it's the person that you should be the closest to, and yet suddenly you can't cross that bridge to them, you can't connect to them, you can't see them, and they can't give you what you need in any way.
This house is being requisitioned by the British government.
Es ist jetzt Ihr Haus. Aber wir haben uns.
Herr Lubitz.
Colonel Morgan, please come inside.
This is my wife.
My daughter and I will stay out of your way until we move to the camp.
So I play Stefan Lubert, who's a German architect. Keira Knightley and Jason Clarke's characters, when they move into his home in outside of Hamburg, just after the war. So they take over the house basically, and Stefan Lubert, who lost his wife in the bombings of Hamburg in 1943, lives there with his daughter, who kind of blames Stefan for the loss of her mother. So they have a very, they don't have much of a relationship when we first meet them. She refuses to talk to him. And they're meant to move into a camp, but Louis decides to let them stay in the attic. It's a massive house. They come from a very wealthy family. It's there's a lot of tension in the beginning, especially from Rachel, who hates Germany and Germans, and Stefan becomes kind of the face of he has to take all that anger. So it's a very strained relationship in the beginning.
There may not be an outward show of hatred, but it's there below the surface.
During the war, did you ever hope for a German victory? Did the bombing affect the health of you and your family?
It's affected the health of my wife.
They'd spent 5 years in total war, so there's a lot of those things of like doing the work and letting it go and then finding your way in with what happens so that he's still alive. I mean, you've really got to feel that even though he's holding on to things, and you know, one way saying he represses it or a stiff upper lip, which is that instinct, another side of saying he's just still finishing the job. The job is not finished. You know, he hasn't gone home and had the ticker tape. He's there picking up the pieces. So he's still getting his hands dirty and witnessing, you know, the horror in this aftermath of what Germany was and the state it was in now, which was equal to what it was at the worst in the war. You know, I mean, it was horrific.
She died in the firestorm.
I'm so sorry.
He's very parochial and the Philistine. She doesn't appreciate art or culture, so they don't have much in common in the beginning of the movie. It's not till they realize that they both lost someone in the war. That's how they, and also the need to have someone to talk to, which neither of them have. This is an opportunity for them to actually have someone to kind of open up to.
Tell me what I was walking into. This isn't how it was supposed to be.
None of this is how it is supposed to be.
Please don't go.
I had a job to do. These guys were only soldiers for the war. He was a teacher before then, you know. But yes, he'd learned to know, you know. But also, they'd done more soldiering and fighting than most, you know, career soldiers will do in their entire lives.
If you're going to spy on a girl, the least you could do is pay her a compliment.
Yes, of course.
I think the reason I wanted to do it was that I read it and I just totally empathized with her, having had no personal experience of anything, thank God, that she'd been through. You know, I just, as one human being to another, read that story and went, oh, I completely understood. And, you know, she doesn't exactly always behave very well, you know, but I completely understood why she was behaving in the way that she was. And I thought that's kind of amazing when you don't need to dig that deep to go, well, how could she possibly behave like that to those people, or how could she possibly go off with him, or, you know, when you can actually go, well, yeah, if I was in that situation, I think anything is possible, you know, and of course she hates them, and of course she does that, you know. I think it was the empathy of it that I found really, really interesting, and therefore, no, I didn't kind of go, oh, this is going to be quite a tricky one. It wasn't very much to get my head round in a funny kind of way, because I think just on a human level, you kind of just go, okay, that's where she is.
I never thought that I could be happy like this.
Come with me. This is what you wanted.
New beginnings.